I think unfortunately there are so many important issues that the public knows very little about for a variety of reasons. One is because we have a corporate media, and another is because the government keeps a lot of secrets from us. I've been doing work around the covert drone program that's been killing so many people overseas by remote control. And this is in places like Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, where the public has no idea we are doing this, and attempts by us as the public to force the government to reveal the information have been very difficult. And so it takes grassroots organizing, mobilizing to put pressure on the government to come clean, to tell us what it's doing in our name. And that's why it's so important to have grassroots movements that push for information to become public. And that's why it's so important to appreciate our whistleblowers like Bradley Manning, who's facing decades in prison, Edward Snowden, who's had to seek asylum in Russia. It's a terrible blight on our democracy that people who help the public become enlightened often end up either in jail or in exile. I think it's a sad state of democracy in America, and it's quite ironic that we tell the world how to run their countries, and yet when you reflect on what's happening here, some examples, the fact that we have a prison in Guantanamo that has been keeping people in jail for over 11 years now, vast majority of them with no charges, with no trials, and the majority of them actually cleared for release, meaning the government has said that they are no threat to us. And yet we continue to hold them, and when they are doing a hunger strike to call attention to their desperation, instead of giving them the freedom they should have, our government is force-feeding them. So that's one example where we tell other governments to obey the rule of law, and yet we are keeping people in indefinite detention. Of course, the big reflection of that is inside the United States, the mass incarceration, particularly of youth of color, and what that does to destroy entire communities over mostly nonviolent crimes. And this is part of the, quote, war on drugs. So the fact that our justice system doesn't work very well for young people, for communities of color, and for our prisoners in this war on terror is one reflection. But there are so many different reflections of things that don't work well in our country. I mean, the fact that somebody like me doesn't even have health care, that's ridiculous. We have people, friends of mine, that have to go back home to Europe, to Canada, or even to poor countries like Pakistan when they need an operation because they can't get it here in the United States without paying lots and lots of money. Educational system broke, the fact that young people graduate in such debt that they can't make real choices about what they want to do with their lives. They have to go the corporate route, or the route that will bring them enough money to just pay for their education. Well, in so many other parts of the world, education is free through your PhD. Not only free, but young people get stipends to reward them for making the sacrifice to study so they can contribute to society. So there's many, many ways that our democracy needs fixing. This issue of drones is a reflection of a government that thinks that it can solve problems with not only greater and greater military intervention, but also somehow the high-tech military intervention is going to be a solution. We should have learned that in Vietnam, where we could not beat the Vietnamese with our high-tech at that time. We should have treated 9/11 as a crime against humanity and gone after individuals who attacked us, not invade wholesale countries like Afghanistan and Iraq. And right now with the drone war, Every time we kill people with our drones, we are creating new enemies. It's the best recruitment tool for extremists. And the fact that we have using these drones so much under the Obama administration, and Al-Qaeda, for example, in Yemen had about 200 members when President Obama started using the drones in 2009, and now there's maybe 1,000. So it is not effective. It is not nearly as precise as our government tells us. A lot of innocent people are killed, and it is considered by the rest of the world, as we have seen in the polls that have been done, as a barbaric way of fighting terror and an instrument of terror, because it not only kills individuals, it also terrorizes entire communities with the buzzing overhead, with the fact that the drones hover in communities for days and weeks at a time, and people never know when they're going to fire a missile, who's going to be killed by that missile. It's really become a weapon of collective punishment and condemned around the world, and we have to stop it. Well, I think the beauty of this conference is that it intertwines all of these issues around media, education, war and peace, workers' rights, building grassroots communities, using local government for building democracy. All of these issues are so intertwined, and it gets us out of our silos. We have a chance to interact with people working on different issues, understand and appreciate the work they're doing, become better allies to show solidarity in those issues, and feel that we are part of one movement. And I think oftentimes people get so focused on the one thing they're doing, and they think this is the issue. We must save the planet by working on climate issues. We must save our democracy by getting money out of politics. We must enlighten the people by changing the way the media works. All of these issues are critical, and instead of saying my issue is the most important one, you should all work on my issue, this conference gives us the chance to say, wow, your issue is so important and your ideas are so exciting, that I am now inspired to work with you and find ways that we can reinforce each other so that we are more important and larger and effective as a sum of the whole.